Hello, and welcome to the 6 p.m. news on Fox. I'm Jack Minetti, and today I'm here with my partners Rehan Patel and Benjamin Wallen. Let's start off today with the weather. Today's weather is projected to be very nice. The weather is projected to be mostly warm and sunny throughout the day. And in the 5-day forecast, we are projecting it to be warm with light rain on Monday, a thunderstorm paired with cold weather on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, it will start to clear out and be overcast. And finally, on Thursday and Friday, the rain will clear out and it will be sunny for the rest of the week. So, let's take some time to go outside and enjoy the weather while it lasts. And today in sports, a match last night between Tom Minot and Tom Hayer. Tom Minot knocked out Tom Hayer in a match that would only last 4 rounds. And later today, Joe Coburn squares off against Jimmy Elliott in what should be the heavyweight fight of the year. But for now, make sure you stick around because today is going to be a special episode. Today, we are going to be looking back at immigration in our great country. Plus, we will take a further look at the impact it has had on making the United States the country we know and love today, including important people, locations, and laws. For now, let's take it over to Rehan, who will talk a little bit more about the history of immigration in our country.
And good evening to everyone tuning into our channel today. Before we start our talk about immigration, we must first learn what immigration is. Immigration is an action by people whose intent is to move to a foreign place or country and live there permanently. At this time and age, statistics show the two leading sources of European immigration to America in the 1840s and 1850s are from Germany and Ireland alone. A continuing high birth rate accounted for most of the increase in the population, but however, in around 1840s, the tides of immigration were adding hundreds of thousands more. However, immigration really blew up in around the 1840s, when populations of immigrants went from 60,000 a year to nearly doubling to a steady 120,000 a year, and then in 1850 taking a widespread by quadrupling.
I agree with you, Rehan, although it is important to realize that these immigrants coming from Europe are going to keep coming into America simply because Europe is running out of room, and America has a lot of new open space for these immigrants to move into. These immigrants are going to travel by foot or cart to their nearest port, where they will then hop onto a boat to cross the Atlantic. However, after 1799, they would have to stop at a place called Lazaretto before making their way to America. Lazaretto was used as a checkpoint to see if any of these passengers carried an illness or disease such as yellow fever.
Now that we looked a little deeper into immigration, we're going to look at some key events that might have spiked, reduced, or even had the littlest of impact on immigration. One of those events being the end of the Napoleonic Wars, which ended in around 1815. At this time, immigration really began to revive itself, but remained relatively low throughout the 1820s because of the economic recession after the Panic of 1819. For those of you who don't know, the Panic of 1819 was a financial panic that swept across the country. It was a horrible time period for people because it made many people get unemployed because unemployment mounted, banks failed, mortgages were foreclosed, and agriculture prices fell by half, causing many people to lose their jobs and often go poor and be on the streets. However, another event was occurring a couple years later, known as the California Gold Rush, which actually benefited people as many people went there to go look for gold. The California Gold Rush occurred in 1848, and this brought many immigrants over to the West Coast. Along with that, the Industrial Revolution occurred in 1815 to 1860. The United States needed more workers to keep up with all the factories, so many immigrants hopped on and went from Europe all the way to America looking for jobs and new opportunities to help the United States and get their lives back intact.
Along with key events, there were also important places like Lazaretto. You may be wondering, what exactly is Lazaretto? Well, Lazaretto is very important to immigration in our country and was established in 1799, just after the yellow fever epidemic. Many immigrants to the United States were coming from hotspots of the epidemic and needed to be checked for deadly diseases. Lazaretto was created just for that. It was used as a facility to make sure that people coming to the country did not carry yellow fever or any other diseases that could be damaging to the population. If a person traveling through Lazaretto had a disease like yellow fever or had yellow fever, they were detained in a hospital at the facility until they were either cured or passed away. There were also some other very important locations for immigration in the United States, like New York City, which was the largest port of entry for immigrants during this period, as well as Boston, who was also one of the largest port of entry for immigrants, but they were particularly from Ireland. And many Irish immigrants settled in the city and worked in manufacturing and domestic service. Finally, Philadelphia was also very important to immigration. Philadelphia was another major destination for immigrants during this period, particularly German immigrants. They settled in the city and surrounding areas and contributed to the growth and wealth of industry and agriculture. On to Ben, who will talk about laws passed against immigrants in this country.
Now, let's take a deeper dive at the attempted responses by Congress. Beginning in 1798, a series of laws were passed to help regulate immigration. These were the Alien Sedition Acts. These laws restricted the activities of immigrants in the country and freedom of speech and press. A Federalist-controlled Congress passed 4 laws known collectively as the Alien Sedition Acts. However, not long after, in 1802, all of the acts had been repealed or expired due to them being deemed as unconstitutional. Now let's take a closer look at what each of these 4 laws were, starting with the Naturalization Act. This reserved naturalization citizenship for whites. African Americans were not guaranteed citizenship until 1868, when the 14th Amendment of the Constitution was ratified in the wake of Reconstruction. Next, the Alien Acts comprised of 2 separate acts. The Alien Friends Act, which empowered the president to deport any alien whom he considered dangerous, and the Alien Friends Act, which allowed the deportation of any alien who hailed from a country at war with the United States. And finally, the Sedition Act made it a crime for Americans to print, utter, or publish any false, scandalous, or malicious writing about the government. An act that did, however, benefit the immigrants was the Homestead Act. This offered free land to settlers who agreed to farm it for at least 5 years. This encouraged immigration to Western United States. Now, we will turn our attention to 2 very important individuals: Speaker of the House of Representatives Jonathan Dayton and Vice President of the United States Thomas Jefferson. These 2 men are very important because they are the 2 main people who came up with the ideas of the Alien Sedition Acts, which was passed in 1798. Our reporter, Mr. Patel, was lucky enough to catch these 2 men on the street and was able to get a quick interview with them. Here's what they had to say.
Hey guys, I'm here with Mr. Dane and Mr. Jefferson. And what made you 2 come up with the most important acts known right now, the Alien and Sedition Act?
As Federalists, we believed that Democratic Republican criticism of Federalist policies were disloyal and feared that aliens living in the United States would sympathize with the French during a war. As a result, we passed 4 laws, known collectively as the Alien and Sedition Acts.
Yeah, and so adding on to what Mr. Jonathan Dayton said, these laws raised the residency requirements for citizenship from 5 years to 14 years, and it authorized the president to deport aliens and permitted their arrest, imprisonment, and deportation during times of war. And the Sedition Act made it a crime for Americans to print any false writing about the government.
Well, thank you 2 gentlemen for your time, and back to you guys at the station.
This has been a Fox News Special Report.